I need to build a stand for this spiral tree. So I'm building a stand for this spiral tree. It's meant to be outdoors, staked into the ground. I don't exactly see how it's staked in the ground, that's where we're missing some pieces. I want it indoors. I'm going to build a stand for it. So there's a couple different ways to attack this. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use 2x4s. So what I'm going to do, these are not cut size. I pull these right out of my scrap pile. I need to cut them down. But I'm going to cross it just like that. I'm going to cut a notch out of both of them so they'll just slot together. That way when you're done, you can flat pack it and it won't be hard. Because if you glue it together like this permanently, you can't. It's hard to store that. If you slide them so they can pull apart, you can flat pack it very easy. So I measured the base of this spiral tree, like at the base, the widest is about 24 inches wide. I don't want it wide in the tree, because if it is, as you're walking by, if you're walking too close to the tree, you might stumble over it. I don't want it to be a tripping hazard. I like it narrow in the tree so the base just kind of fades out of view. I mean, optimally I need to paint these white because the plastic, everything about this thing, the metal rod that goes in the middle, it's all white, so it'd be nice to paint this white. Depends on how lazy I feel today, so whether this actually gets painted today. That might just be one of those future things off in the distance. What I am going to do to dress this up a little bit is that I'm going to... I gotta pick that up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to round off the edges, kind of just cut the corners down a nice little radius, just to make it look a little nicer. You know, because if you leave it like this, these cut ends, it just looks a little rough. I want it to look at least somewhat refined. So I'm going to round off the edges. I'm going to notch the top one less than the bottom one because I need the pole, this whole thing, like there's this pole that's about, dropping everything today. This pole is about 5 feet tall overall and it's meant to stake in the ground, but I need it staked in this pole. So I need enough depth in here, like I think about, maybe about that. I want it somewhat secure. I can't go all the way down because I need a notch. I don't want to go, I guess it could go, I guess the hole could go all the way through this one and just hit the bottom one. So anyway, I guess I would notch this one to about right there. I'll drill all the way through. That way I'll just sit on the bottom one, which is fine because I want the maximum amount of depth. Because if you get it this shallow, it's not going to be sturdy. You need at least an inch or inch and a half, 2 inches into the bore. So that is the plan. I'm going to mark these things out, come to length 18 inches. The thing's about 24 inches. 18 inches is a good size. Then I will notch them. The bottom one I'm going to notch a lot bigger than the top one. The top one I'm probably going to notch like a ½ inch or so. Maybe 3/4, maybe an inch. It's one of those things, I know it when I see it. And right now I'm looking at the camera, so I'm not seeing this forward. So we'll get it. So let's get started. The nice thing is this project is very low stakes. I mean, if your measurements aren't exactly right, it doesn't really matter. As long as these things fit together and you have a hole in the center, it's set. Super low stakes. So I've got the pieces cut. This is the base of the pole. This needs to stick into the wood base I'm creating. So I used a pair of calipers just to kind of measure how wide it is. And I don't have any drill bits big enough. I do have a Forstner bit, and a Forstner bit is perfect for this because it creates a completely hollow hole. Something like I mean, you could use a hole saw bit or something. You could use spade bit. Probably gonna stick with the Forstner. The only thing about a spade bit is that it'll cut through the wood very quickly, but it'll do a little bit of tear out. It's not always the best choice, but it'll rip through wood very. Measured out to a little less than 3/4 of an inch. If you go to 5/8, well, that is just too small of a hole. So 3/4 it is. I'm gonna try to get it dead center, go all the way through my 2x4, and then notch these things out. I'm gonna round off the edges just to get that finished look. So here's my thing. I'm going to do it on a drill press. Just make sure my hole's straight. Don't have to worry about it. Clamp it down. Very easy. So I traced out my corners, and I just basically I look for whatever can or bucket or anything I have in the shop. They'll just give me a nice guide for that. Because all it is a guide. I mean, once I get on the bandsaw, I'm going to try to smooth it out, because you don't want any rough cuts. You want it as smooth as possible. Ultimately, I'll put the belt sander on it, smooth it a little bit. But I'm just looking for a guide. Now, I am going to cut about 3 inches off each edge. I'm going to cut about 1/4 inch up, all the way down, just so that if I only have 4 points in contact to the floor, if the floor is unlevel, if there's anything going on with the floor, this will help me level it. I can just put something on each foot. When you have contact across the whole thing, if the floor has maybe a bow in the middle, it makes it a little more difficult to level it out. I'm sure my floor is perfectly level, of course, these things always are, but just in case, or just planning for the future, I'm going to do that. I got the hole drilled. Oh, I do need to trace out my notches here. As a 2x4 is 3.5 inches wide. It's a 2x4, but that's the nominal dimension. That's not the exact dimension. The exact dimension is about 3.5. And so I need to cut out in total 3.5, so that would be 2.5 from one from the other, somewhere along those lines. Once I sketch, I'm going to kind of figure out which looks right and figure out how much I'm going to cut out of it. Alright, so I've cut it all out, and it's time to test fit it. I noticed one distinct problem, and that would be this. The notches, it fits together great. Do you see my problem? I cut the notch on the wrong side on this one. Is there a way to salvage it? There is. It could just be a little bit shorter. I just would round off these edges. I mean, maybe I just completely redo it. I don't know, but yeah, I completely cut the notch on the wrong side. But at least it fits together nice. I mean, it's probably be stable as is. It just look a little strange. I don't know if I'm gonna do that. I don't know whether I should just re-round the corners off. I mean, ultimately, I just should restart, but I don't really want to. I'm almost done, and because I messed up, I'm not almost done. But hey, at least the notches fit together okay. So I had a bit of an issue. I remember what I did when I was drawing out the notch for the bottom one. I realized I'd drawn it on the wrong side, so I turned it. I didn't flip my notch, and that's why it's upside down. So I had the option of, do I recut it? What do I do? And I decided I'm not going to recut it because I honestly just don't feel like it. It's just going to be artistic. It's this mirror image artistic thing going on. That's what I'm going to tell myself. That's why I'm not going to fix it. I mean, it works pretty much as intended. I dig it, so I think it is what it is. So we'll just leave it for the next guy. If the next guy doesn't like it, let him deal with it. But this is it. This is the base. It is, it got a very artistic flair now since I screwed it up. And you can see the belt sander really helped smooth out some of these corners and these cuts. I rounded over some edges. Now, the belt sander is not the best way to round over an edge. You should use a router, or at least, a lot of times I'll either use a router, like 1/8 inch round over, or maybe even 1/4 to match this, or I may use a sanding block with 80 grit. I messed up the cut. I don't care anymore. It's like, it's already screwed up. What does it matter if I put these finishing details on? Yeah, maybe I should do it, but I'm not. But if you wanted to go the distance, you didn't screw this up like I did, get a 1/4 inch round over, go over all the edges and corners that way, because a 2x4 naturally has a round over to it, so that way you'd match and all these corners, they'd be equal. So this is it. I'll show you what it looks like with the tree in it. But pretty much it's like you've seen. Just picture this with a spiral tree above it. But the thing works, man. I dig it. It'll do its job. I mean, before I couldn't even stand the tree up, so at least now I'm a little bit farther along, even if I did screw it up. Here is the finished product. So obviously it would look better if I painted it white. It also look better if I didn't screw it up. So there's a little bit of slop. I told you the bar is a little bit bigger than 5/8, so it's smaller than 3/4. So there's a little bit of slop there. You can see there's a little bit of slop in the notch I drilled. So to do that, to fix that, so this thing doesn't wobble quite as much, a shim in the joint, just right in there, that would solve that problem. And then just a little bit of duct tape around the bottom of the pole would solve that amount of slop. I mean, as is, I've just kind of like leaned it so if you're looking at it head on, you don't see that it looks slanted, that it just looks straight. Now, if you go to the other side, yeah, it would look crooked. But that's what it is. It is up, and that's more than it was before.